Hey, how's it going? I just want to do a lesson on pastors and Bible teachers and deacons and elders and apostles and all this stuff. So, you know, my quick story. I've been through Christianity since I was 18 or 19 years old. I started, reading the Bible that was given to me by a friend who went to an evangelical church, and I started going to that church infrequently, and then went to non-denominational churches thereafter, and then some even more kind of quote unquote serious evangelical type churches, and got involved in that, and then been to a postmodern kind of more hippie style church as well. And I've seen a lot, and as far as mainstream Christianity. And then now, in the last couple of years, I've been watching some of the Israelite videos, and they've been very helpful in terms of really making the Bible make sense, and people that take it a lot more seriously in terms of it actually being true and relevant to today, and which is great. But with that being said, what I've learned and just what I've thought about today, it's like important for us to check the credentials of people who are teaching us, this kind of thing, like someone who is teaching us, the Bible, spiritual nourishment that we're expecting to obtain. It's important for us to know, what the person is all about, that they're teaching, or what the person's all about, who's teaching us. And, we know for sure it should be a man, biblically, men should be teaching. Not to say that women can't have an opinion or supplement or whatever, but in a formal sense, like we know that information gets funneled through men and real men, and which is what we need to make sure that the person is. And so, this is just again more like common sense, and I wish I had this insight in the past, but I probably think it would have frustrated me more then, because I definitely would not have found anyone in that world who would even be open to answering some of these questions. But it's like if we're going to a school, and we're learning from a textbook, we want to make sure the person is familiar with that book, or could even have authored that book, in an educational or an academic sense, and go to a reputable school and this and that. It's important, like it's sort of implied, because the university is doing all the vetting when they, interview teachers and professors, and, make sure they're qualified and they have PhDs and all of that, but so there's some element of like us making sure, the person's qualified, and we ask questions regularly, in a classroom, and then make sure that they can answer it, and stuff like that. So there's like a natural filtering process and, vetting process in place, like from the university itself, and then the students through reviews and performance and stuff. Teachers are found out if they're not capable. And so it's the same kind of thing in any industry. Like in accounting, I'm a CPA. We have things in place to make sure that a person is up to certain standards, ethical standards, educational standards, and so on. And it's like, to draw an analogy to like the spirit world, it's like, how are we to judge that someone is connected to God in a biblical sense? Like what are some of the things that you would ask? And for me, what a person should be doing to claim that they're connected to God, first of all, have sound doctrine in terms of not just cherry picking scriptures and for their own purpose, and open to talking about all aspects of the Bible, and not shirking certain parts, or diluting or ignoring certain parts. And we know a lot of pastors do that. The health and wealth prosperity gospel thing is just an obvious example where they cherry pick very few, and even the few that they look at, they're completely misconstruing. So that's obvious, but that can happen to even what I've seen with the Israelite community. We see this happening. It's like, as much as I've learned from the group at GMS, it's obvious now, that their elders are cherry picking verses and avoiding verses, especially the ones that pertain to flat Earth, and the ones that pertain to the one sin, all sin, and that really forced us to introspect, and really realize like, man, we all kind of like seem like we're in a similar boat, as far as sin, and all that, there's a lot of verses that make it extremely difficult to distinguish who God's elect are from the non-elect, the 1/3 and 2/3, as they cite often. So, and the list goes on. So like, that's bad, so definitely, a person who claims to be a Bible scholar would be open to discussing all aspects of the Bible, and definitely again, the extreme cases are the mainstream Christian pastors who are very averse to talking about the Old Testament and the prophets and all that. And, obviously they're not allowed to now, we know, because of the 501c3 designation, and they're, getting, financial incentives to truncate the truth. And, we know that they're set up for, to be on the left-hand side. But, so that's an extreme example. But, so doctrinally sound, open to looking at all aspects of scriptures and applying it, where it's, necessary and correct to do so. But again, not afraid to like, open up all of it, and from A to Z, from the beginning to the end. So that's very important. And that immediately will filter out, majority, if not what I've seen, almost all of the pastors, leaders that are out there right now. They're like, I haven't seen many, let's just say that, that are open to do that. And then so beyond that, which we're already now in a very small group, if they even exist, in the world right now. Next, I would start asking about, the person's life, and like what their spending habits are, their financial situation, how generous they are, what are their views on, just money, because this is another stronghold, that it's very easy to like, coerce all of us, through money and stuff. So, to me, I would get into that and try and understand, how a person views money and wealth, and, what it really means to them in terms of, does it bring them value and all of that. And they shouldn't, really. That's why I would want to know. They could have any amount of money, but if they really seem like they're clinging to it or politicking to get more or preserve it or just not generous, to me, a person who's truly connected to God would want to actually figure out ways to like get rid of their money as fast as possible in the most righteous way possible, and constantly in a way test God to, make sure that, their generosity is constantly being replenished. And then if it's not, then, that's their time to go. And that's okay, and that's what they want, because they don't want to be here fundamentally in the physical flesh. So, that's I would inquire about that topic for sure. I would look into things like what would be next? I mean, I would look at purity. I was gonna say fasting first, but I would probably start with this, like just sexual purity, in terms of just again, just being open and transparent about what they might have done or struggle with or think about, and all of that. And this is a difficult thing for a lot of leaders to talk about, because some might not even admit that they're sinning. They'll just say it's okay to do whatever they're doing. And not to pick on elders at GMS again, but they're definitely in that camp, where they're just preaching stuff that is just an abomination. To even talk about the stuff that they're saying, much less spread it as if it's okay, is crazy. But like anything in the realm of sexual purity and stuff, and again, we would have to think that you don't necessarily have to have a perfect track record to be a leader and to be connected to God, but there would have to be a certain understanding that those type of sins are really some of the it's the most dangerous, possibly even more dangerous than money, that can snare people and put you in a really weird position in terms of attracting spirits that you don't want, and especially if you're leading other people. So then I would ask about whether the person takes care of their own body, do they even think about those kind of things, health related. Again, not everyone's rich and has a personal trainer and a chef, but something along those lines, not gorging out on food, and even if we can't have the best foods, it's like not eating too much and all that stuff, and not having a big footprint when it comes to food. And then related to that is fasting. It's like, for me, anybody who's spreading information in a broad sense and it's like unique or like not kind of obvious, like, to me it's like there's a lot of people who are quote unquote preachers. I would say even like me to some extent. Like, I consider myself someone who's like internet pastor, internet whatever, person sharing information, or whatever. But I'm not sharing stuff that's like super deep, because like, honestly, like, that's just not, my calling as of right now. It's like stuff that I share, like, it's like fairly intuitive, or you can go and research it yourself. Like, for example, flat earth, it's like, it's nothing that I'm saying I had some divine revelation. It's like, it's just science. It's just, you look and observe and do experiments and see what other people are saying and know the agenda that God has set up. So there's some spiritual aspect to it, and that confirms it even more. But it's like obvious, it's like observational, it's intuitive. And then, like, America being Babylon, you just read a couple chapters. You don't have to be a Bible scholar to see it. You just have to, we know the homosexuality, the perversions in corporate America and banking, and I mean, it's all of that. It's just like, and Revelation is, to me, Revelation 17 and 18, very clear. So you go follow up with that. But, to me, it's like deeper truths, especially stuff like history that has been, hidden, and different, interpretations. To me, that always requires fasting and prayer. Just like, we see in scriptures that getting rid of certain demons, spirits, required, Yahushua's intervention, because certain ones would not leave without a certain amount of, righteousness or purity, cleanliness. They would not obey. And so there's a hierarchy in that realm as well. And like, to me, it's like, that applies also to me in terms of receiving revelation. It's like, I would definitely ask, and like, if you're if you're getting information from someone who's just a glutton, and just seems to be puffing themselves up, and very carnal, which I would say all the elders at GMS are, and just, I suspect they don't fast and pray for wisdom, because clearly they don't know that the earth is flat, and it's obvious scripturally and scientifically now. So that's a major warning sign. Again, those are extreme examples, but for your everyday, whoever you're turning to for that type of wisdom, I would find out about that. Like, I'm fasting lately, but it's more of like a health thing. I haven't gotten to the place where I'm like curious about something, that I'm like seeking some particular piece of information. But like, if I believe we're living in the last days, literally days, away from this thing being finished. But in a normal setting, if you have questions about your career or marriage or whatever, certain decisions, fasting and prayer is mandatory. It's like, it's even if you quote unquote are living righteous, this is the thing that signals to God that you're actually serious about receiving wisdom, and you're not double-minded, as the Bible talks about. You don't want to be. If you have to be focused and single-minded, you don't just step into the presence of God and it's like, God, what up? Like, I got these questions, like, just text me the answer, email me when you get time. This is not the way the Most High works. He's a spirit that's created all things, infinitely everything. So, we wouldn't even treat people on earth like that. Even people on earth that we think that we're better than, we wouldn't even expect that type of response, rapid response. So it's definitely not the case with the Most High. He has requirements, and clearly it's structured. And that example of, the demons only leaving under Yahushua's command and not his disciples proves that there is a threshold. There are hierarchies. There are rules. We may not know them. We don't know maybe any of them, but they exist. And we know for sure fasting and prayer and solitude and generosity and charity, these are all like ways to communicate to God, and get his attention, so to speak. Whether he answers or not is up to him, and all these things have already been decided. We're just living it out. So he puts those ideas in our mind to do them. So all of it is him doing it. But that's a good start, for sure, and mandatory. There's no way to circumvent these things. We know Creflo Dollar and TD Jakes. You can kind of just look at TD Jakes. These guys are not fasting. They're eating deliciously. And and if they are fasting and stuff, it's like kind of the stuff I'm doing is more for like personal health reasons. It's not to like get extra revelation, deep revelation. So again, those are extreme examples. I hope it's obvious for people at least now that they're criminals, but siphoning money and stuff from people. But fasting is something I would definitely ask. And these are all like things that any good pastor or whatever would be comfortable with answering. And even Jesus says, if you don't believe me based on my words, but just think about my miracles, think about what I'm doing. And he was even approached, by John the Baptist's disciples, asking, are you the one, or are you the Messiah? And he just said, look at the things that I'm doing. What would the Messiah do? And so he would reason with people. He would entertain their questions. He wouldn't get upset. Why are you asking me this? Like, who are you? Like, you're not even important. You're not even John the Baptist. You're just one of John the Baptist's minions. He would never say stuff like that. People were asking sincerely, like, we want to know, are you who you say you are? Like, are you who we've been waiting for? And what are your credentials? And he would say, look at the work that I've been doing. And in a way, this is the why we know that Jesus Christ, or Yahushua, is from God and is God, because of the stuff that he does. Like, if we were to imagine, even without having any of the scriptures or anything religious in front of us, if we were to just deduce things about God based on what he's already implanted in our mind, that's the way he would act. He would come to earth and say the things that Jesus did. He would push back against people who act a certain way, and then accept people who act a certain way, and act another way. Humble. And so he would do exactly that, and he would meet the same fate that he did. They would with the way the world is then and now, someone like that would get killed, and they would not be able to live a full life, that's for sure. So that's why we know that he's God, and he would call out sin from people on his team and not on his team, with fervor, and not even any hesitation. And so this is why that we know that he's God, but he's also open to people asking him questions, and he would, and I think just knowing the way he is, like he would wonder why people wouldn't ask questions. It's like he wouldn't want you to go up to he wouldn't want you to just see something and just believe it right away. That would be foolish. And he even says there will be many false prophets in the last days. There will be people coming in his name, even doing miracles. And he will say that they were actually not of his flock. And so he's sending all these sort of delusions, these deceptions, really to test us, to see, like, what will we fall for? What would it take for us to be gullible enough to fall for certain things? And, he's basically, in a sense, saying that we're all required to be on our watch. We're all required to ask hard questions and uncomfortable questions and all that, to our leaders, even if they've been leading us for a long time, even if they've been leading us well. Everybody's capable of slipping at a moment's notice, and no one is, outside the grip of sin and temptation and all of that stuff. So, and I would say our leaders are more susceptible to that because they have influence, at least over a few people. And so, this is the times that we live in now. We can't be shy, or whatever. If we see stuff, if we see people preaching stuff that is not right or doesn't seem right or looks like it's going to mislead, we have a responsibility to push back. If we see it happening to others, or with our under our own leaders or whatever, we can't be shy about it, and we absolutely have to be diligent in this kind of thing, and not be shy, and know that it will serve a greater good, because it could potentially prevent someone else from being deceived.